The Seeds of Champions Together actually started in 1987 when Eunice Kennedy Shriver, the founder of Special Olympics, addressed an audience of 5,000 Special Olympics athletes from all over the world at Notre Dame's football stadium before the start of the international games.
You are the stars, and the world is watching you. By your presence, you send a message to every village, every city, every nation. A message of hope, a message of victory. The right to play on any playing field, you have earned it. The right to study in any school, you have earned it. The right to hold a job, you have earned it.
My first thought about servant leadership was when I was attending the downtown Kiwanis meetings in Indianapolis. And so we're having a meeting one time, and they come out there with the membership report. And there's one guy. Well, meet Joe. He's our new member. Okay, great. Hi, Joe. Then we go a little bit longer and we do the necrology report. Well, Bill died, Susie died, Andy died, Mike died. And so I'm driving back up here to the office, and I'm thinking, you know what, we got one new member and we lost 5. And if we keep going in this route every month, we're gonna run out of members. And I said, we're not teaching servant leadership very well to young people, and that's our fault. That's adults' fault. So as I come back to the office, I'm thinking about the Student Advisory Committee. And those are 18 of the best and the brightest kids in Indiana that serve the IHSA. And I'm thinking, there's got to be something we can do to help those young people learn more about servant leadership and see if that appeals to them. So I presented it to the kids. I said, I would like for you as a group to think about servant leadership. Partner with some group. I don't really care who it is, but I want it to be in all 92 counties of our state.
Bobby Cox's vision was complemented by the fact that a longtime partner of his, Lee Lonzo, took an interest in supporting their Student Athlete Leadership Council in doing a project that would go into the community. And it was there that the connection between Special Olympics and the IHSAA took root.
His challenge to me was to beef him up a little bit on leadership practices and then let them decide, let them own what they wanted to do. Well, I had done some work for the NCAA, and I knew that their student athletic advisory committees had been involved with not-for-profits. So I suggested that to the kids. They liked the idea, so they started researching who was available. And they invited Riley's Children's Hospital and Special Olympics Indiana to make presentations.
I recollect Andrew Peterson coming to speak to us in addition to another opportunity for us to partner and to really have an impact on high school sports and high school student athletes. And Andrew, I remember sitting in the room and people, being teary-eyed by the message Andrew brought to us. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but I remember how he made us feel.
It really tugged at all of our hearts. We were all really strong, competitive athletes in there. So it really made it relatable that, everyone has differences. But when you come to a sport, you just play the sport. You play the sport you love. And it really, really, really hit home for us that we were like, this is what we need to do. We represent Indiana athletes across the state, and that has to be with Unified Sports as well.
With Unified Sports in high schools, I knew we can make a difference one student at a time.
There was almost an immediate consensus among the kids that they said, we got to go with Special Olympics. Came to Bobby with the idea and said, here's what we'd like to do. And Bobby said, well, you're going to have to make a formal presentation. And they did to him, and he said at the end of it, I like your idea. You're going to have to make a formal presentation to our board of directors. But they went in front of that IHSA board of directors, wowed them over, and they wholeheartedly, unanimously said, yep, we want to do it.
It really took a number of things just to align to make this happen. I mean, one of it is Lee Lonzo. Again, anybody can have a great idea, but unless you got that person selling it, it's still just an idea. Next thing you know, we're in an official partnership, and that was December of 2012. And then the more we started talking, we later called this whole thing Champions Together. And if you're champions together, then really to be champions together, you got to compete together. And so we kind of took it from this thing of let's do these fundraising activities, or let's do these promotional activities, or let's do these unified activities, and took it to the next step within that first 6 months and said, let's do unified sports together. And it was just all these stars aligning in such a way that it made sense.
And so they kind of put that challenge back on us as, whatever that looks like to you. And that was, overwhelming, but also super exciting to have that charge put on us. And of course, Mr. Cox and Mr. Lonzo were very much holding our hands and encouraging us through this whole thing. But, we didn't have a template that we were working on. We just knew that we wanted to bring these athletes to the forefront, make them feel included, and allow them to have then the honor too of wearing their high school name in front of their peers.
I can remember going down to one of our first unified track meets at Borden, talking to one of the participating principals during the course of the track meet. And the last event comes up, it's the 400. And we have, everybody finishes except for two kids, partner and athlete. And this kid comes around the corner, just chugging along, doing the best. All the other kids are cheering, and they get to the finish line and wait for the kid to finish. And I look over at the principal, he's bawling. Just absolutely tears streaming. And that's the impact that it has. And I think that's when people see what, we're able to see what actually happened at those events, they were sold on it. And that first year we had like maybe 9 or 10 schools that would participate. The next year was 30, 47, and now we're well above 100. And I think when people see it, they understand it, they know the value of it, and that's when it really takes off. It is very, very, to see an event that's well done, it's completely impactful.
I have known Lee Lonzo since I was a student in high school. He was the most popular teacher in our building. And I've worked with him in a variety of capacities over the years, and I got a phone call from him, and he was all excited about this new thing called Champions Together. And he said, Craig, I need your help putting together a school assembly. And I said, Lee, you cannot talk to high school students for 45 minutes about Special Olympics. Come on, you know better than that. And he said, will you help me? Well, then he showed me a video of Andrew Peterson. And I was fascinated. And I thought, okay, I got it. I'm Andrew's opening act.
Every time I spoke in packed gymnasiums, I rocked it. Special Olympics athletes is not a nobody, but a somebody. I joined the cross-country team and gained valuable self-confidence. I even found my voice for the first time in my life. My disability didn't define me, but so many people still focused on what I couldn't do. I showed them and went on to earn not 1, but 4 varsity letters.
I knew Andrew could touch an entire student body with his story, but he had to be practically perfect so people heard his message and didn't see him first as just another student in special education. When people share their stories, they open hearts and minds to gain new perspective, and that's the only way we're going to change things.
Our athletes can achieve far greater than most people give them credit to if they just have people that set high expectations for them. Reasonable expectations, though, realistic expectations, but higher expectations than we normally would give to them. High expectations will change anybody's life. Take out special education, take out intellectual disability or not. For you and I, for anybody in our lives, if we didn't have people who believed in us, we wouldn't achieve as much as we have in our lives. If we didn't have people who set high expectations for us, we wouldn't achieve as much as we have. So it takes that combination, and you got to take intellectual disability out of the equation. Our athletes can do a lot.
I'd have to say that Unified impacted our family in a lot of positive ways. One, we worried, when Liam was ready to go into high school, and we wondered what his experience would be like. Would he be able to make friends? Would he be able to be a part and feel included? And when he got the opportunity to be a part of Unified Track, for our family, it gave us a sense of relief. It gave us a sense of a positive feeling that Liam's life was going to change and he was going to make a difference in this world, and he already is.
I got an offer from the basketball coach to be a manager, possibly even a basketball player on their team, but I just went with a manager that he said, you know what, he said, Coach Zach Hahn of Center Grove said, I want you to be a part of my team by being a manager, and he trusted me all along. And then when I got to PE class, I got involved in Unified Sports on top of that. So I was getting commitments top one to another, and then that's what helped.
It changes lives, because when I was first involved with Special Olympics, I was that lonely kid with my head down. I really didn't know anyone. I knew people in my school, I knew the star athletes, and I knew who they were, but they didn't know who I was. And because of Champions Together, I got to know who they were as people, and they got to know who I was, and we built those long-lasting relationships. A big reason why it changes lives, my friend Abby would say, Mitch is my best friend, not my best friend with disabilities. And she always tells people that it didn't just change her life, it changed the lives of everybody in the school system.
When it came to the Champions Together, I really felt like it was an all-encompassing movement that kind of took everyone by storm. I felt like the culture at our school changed. It wasn't like everyone was as cliquey in the lunchroom. It was cool to go hang out with those kids that normally sit at their own table, because they had hung out with them at Unified Track, or they've done like a Unified event with them, and all of a sudden they saw them as, oh, that's my classmate. Before we were kind of separate. Always blown away when someone tells me some story of how we've impacted them or they've been impacted, and to just see that, we're all we have a lot more in common than we have different, and to really break down that barrier. I mean, sports does that, but it didn't just happen on the field. It happened off the field, off the court, in the classroom, in the workplace, in college. I mean, it was just really cool to see.
My pivotal moment was when I met my best friend Kyle Butterworth. I had just finished running the 100 at the Unified Track meet, and I was sitting alone drinking water, and Kyle came and sat next to me and asked if I liked country music, and I said, yeah, I love country music. And he whipped out his headphones from his backpack, and we listened to country music together the entire rest of the track meet. On the bus ride home, when we got back to the school, waiting for our parents to pick us up, and then I met his parents, and he just changed my life. From that moment on, Kyle and I were inseparable, and he couldn't say Elizabeth, so I was country girl. And so for weeks he would call me country girl, and he would say country girl to his parents, and it took a long time for his parents to put together that Elizabeth Price was country girl. So once we really made that connection, it was the beginning of the most amazing friendship I will ever have in my entire life. Kyle completely changed my trajectory of my life.
Well, we hear the word inclusion a lot more now than we did 10 years ago. And the opportunity for my children at a high school of 5,000 to have an impact on making a place for people with various abilities, disabilities, to be included and part of a team, part of their school, it seemed like a very exciting opportunity for my kids to be part of something in a school that size.
What this does is it opens so many doors, and it changes life. And we can come up with wonderful stories about individuals, but I think the real thing in a team concept is the doors that open today that we might not even realize are being open for student athletes. I think the gift of participation, being part of a team, being part of something greater than yourself, working with others to achieve a common goal are gifts that are given in student-based athletics or education-based athletics on a daily basis. And now that we give those in the unified opportunities also, I think it's the thing that I'm thrilled to death with about the lessons that are being learned today that'll carry these students through the rest of their life. I think that's a gift that we're giving now, and we may not even see the end result of that, but we know it will be there for the rest of these student athletes' lives.
I think that with Special Olympics, unified sports and champions together, I believe that that's afforded Sky an opportunity to grow and mature. And the part about the maturity is, I have no idea how long it would have taken him to mature to the point where he could hold a job, but I do know that with the teamwork that he's been exposed to, and that he learned how to work in a team, I know that that's enabled him to have a paying job, and that's hugely important for individuals with disabilities.
Happy anniversary, Mr. Chicago. I love you guys.
I think when you're the leader in a lot of things, it's special when people come and ask you, hey, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Being one of the first state programs to partner with the State Athletic Association and Champions Together 10 years ago was a huge factor for Special Olympics North America, I believe.
They had a phrase, inclusion revolution, and as unified sports really took off, inclusion revolution kind of spread across the school and changed the culture in the building as a whole, and you would start to see kids reach out and be more inclusive across the board, whether it be activities, dances, proms, different things throughout the school building that would allow more and more kids to become involved in one activity, and it really changed the way everyone looked at each other.
Right now, there's probably about 160 schools in the state that participate in one form or another of Champions Together. There are currently 407 member IHSA schools. Is it realistic to think 10 years from now that every IHSA member school will be involved in some way, shape, or form with unified sports or Champions Together? I'm not sure about that, but I'd certainly like to see our numbers approaching 250, 300 and be able to say that 2/3 or 3/4 of our schools are involved.
Well, as we celebrate the first 10 years of Champions Together, really what I'm looking forward to in the next 10 years is expansion of the sports that we're offering, increasing the number of schools that are involved. But I'd really like to then take a look and say, there's been a lot of adult talk, whether, Lee, Bobby, myself, but, who's that next generation that's going to come in and replace us? So it's interesting, Mike Furnish is retired, Bobby's retired, Lee's retired, and we're still moving. We've got that next generation of leaders with Paul and Brian and Robert and Mike Cash that we just keep moving. We're moving forward. But I'd really like to take a look and say, because I'm going to guarantee you that we've trained my replacement. They're one of these high school kids that we've already worked with. We just haven't figured out which one it is yet. But I know one of them will take my job someday.
When you start something like that, you really don't know what it's going to look like a year from then, or 5 years from the start, or today. You really don't know. All you can do is work your hardest at what you think is doing the right thing, And when I was giving this thought about getting it started, it was about doing the right thing for all kids in schools. Not just the greatest kids in school, not just the worst kids in school, but all kids. Let's try to figure out a way to touch all kids and make that high school experience better. This was one way for us to do it. It was embraced by our membership, embraced by our administrators, embraced by our student athletes. And as I look back on it now, and you know, it's fun to see. I go to the Unified Flag Football Championships and I go to the Unified Track Meet, and it's very humbling to watch and see the growth of it, and just watch the pure joy of our coaches and our student athletes participating. And it leaves a good feeling in your heart when you get in the car and head home.
I also like to say, though, that the staff that we have here and the staff at the High School Association, dedicated people to making lives better, with and without intellectual disabilities, youth leaders with the association, young and old here at Special Olympics. Our staffs are so dedicated to making the world better. And while the world is a big place, at least we're taking care of our corner of it. And that's our job.